to make a wavy corner bookshelf, just like this. This is the inspiration, and it came from my girlfriend who stumbled upon it on Instagram while she was scrolling. As soon as she saw it, she sent it to me, and I knew what that meant. Time to make a new project. So, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Romario, and this is Build with Romario. I'm going to be showing you guys every step along the way. If you have any questions, if you like I missed something, leave a comment down below, and I'll get right back to you. Let's go get the material to make this. Before I get the material, don't forget to bring positive energy to every project. Now let's go. So I'm at Lowe's getting ready to pick up the material. I have two options in terms of wood that I can choose from. One is cheap, one is a little bit more expensive. The goal is to have this as budget friendly as possible, but the only issue I'm running into is that the cheaper option, there's a lot of warps in the wood, so I might have to spend a little bit more for quality. So, which is definitely not a problem. It's going to be a beautiful project, so I might just pay the extra for the pricier option, which is not that crazy, but more than I was planning. Again, it's still under the actual cost of this shelf. The stained grade panel, this comes in a 6-foot section and it's $32. Well, the paint grade panel, this comes in an 8-foot section and it's $28. But as I said, it's gonna be tricky getting one that's not warped like this. It's kind of bent, not sure if you can see it, but let me go through the pile, see what I can find, and I'll tell you guys the verdict. All right, so I think I got lucky, right? I found two panels that from the cheap section and it's fairly straight. If not, I have a way of fixing it. Now I got it from the paint graded panels, which is the $28 one where I get 8-foot, but they look like they're the ones for the stained grade panels, but they just don't have the wrap on it. But again, it's in that other section, so I'm gonna see if I could get it for the price of the paint grade panels, and yeah, see if they'll give it to me for that price, because again, they sectioned it in that area. So let's see what happens. I'm gonna ask the question, and these are what I prefer to have because the pattern is way better looking than these. This is just all over the place. They just glued up a lot of different small sections together, you can see. It doesn't look like I need to ask anything because one of them does have a barcode and I just scanned it on the Lowe's app and it is $28. Again, I know what type of wood this is, but they probably mislabeled it. Good for me. I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna cut off around 2 foot and use out those sections. Well, 2 foot from both because again, we need this to be 6 inches for the shelf. That's the shelf height. And I'm gonna use that cut off section for 2 shelves, maybe 3, I'm not sure, but we're gonna have extra material. So now I'm gonna just pick up the one smaller section of wood for the remainder shelves. We need 5 in total. 2 is taken care of. I'm just gonna get probably 2 foot extra for the other shelves. So let's pick that up and be on the road. All right, gang, we're back at the shop. I did go ahead and get the 8-foot boards. They're 3 1/4 inch by 16 inch by 8 foot. The bookcase is gonna be 6 foot tall. So what I'm gonna do is cut off 2 foot from each board. So I'm gonna use the extra piece of material to build the shelves. Now the shelves, they're gonna vary in size. They're not gonna be perfect squares because once I get to the indent portion of the wave, then that's gonna take off some length of the shelf. So I'm just gonna give you the longest length of each shelf that I'm going for. And in the end, I'm gonna tell you the final measurements for each shelf. So it's gonna start by, I was gonna go with 16 by 16 based on how it's gonna be built. It's gonna probably be around 15.5 by 15.5. Going up, we'll take off roughly 2 inches as we go up in increments. It's gonna be 15.5. Going up, I'll go to 14, I know 2 inch increments, but it's gonna be 14 by 14, 12 by 12, 10 by 10, and the last shelf on the top is gonna be 8 by 8. Again, that's just, it's not gonna be a square, but I'm giving you the measurements I'm trying to go for. Now that's the measurements for this project. How I'm gonna connect it is by using these screws. 1.5 inch screws is Craig pocket screws, and you can get them at your local Home Depot or Lowe's. What I'll also be using is some stain. I'm not 100% sure which stain I'm gonna go with yet, but I'll show you the process of getting to applying the stain. By the time we get to that portion, we will know what we're using. What we're looking for is something a little bit light, still natural. That's the vibe that Cecile, my girlfriend, is looking for. So probably go and venture out to see what I can find, and I'll let you know. All right, gang, so how I'm gonna cut out this 2 foot section is by using my circular saw. If you don't have one, you can use a hand saw to cut it out and then just sand the top section that way you cut off. So for me, I don't trust my hand when it comes to straight cuts. So what I'm gonna do is use a guide. I took the distance between the blade and the guard and made a mark right here. So that's roughly 1.5 inches away. So this is where I'm actually gonna cut, and the blade is gonna line up exactly right here. What I'm gonna do is place a straight edge on my mark, and I'm gonna clamp it down using my clamps. Clamp it, keep it sturdy, and then I'm gonna run my circular saw to get this cut out. I'm gonna do it for both boards, and also another thing, I'm going to also clamp this board to my table. I'll be using something to protect the board itself so the clamp don't push down into it. I won't be making it that tight, but again, just trying to better safe than sorry. All right, let's make the cuts. All right, guys, don't forget to put on your PPE. Safety first, always. Alright guys, now that we have the boards cut, it's time to move on to the design. So what I'm going to do first is mark out where I'm going to have the shelves, and then I'm going to mark out where the shelves are going to end, meaning the length of the shelves. So the top shelf is going to be, well, we're aiming for 8 by 8. So I'm going to measure from the back end over 8 inches, and I'll make a little mark. This is going to be the bottom of the shelf, the bookcase, and one shelf is going to land right here. This is the shelf. This is 3/4 inch spacing between these two lines, so that's just showing me where my shelf is gonna go. So from here to the bottom of the shelf is 14 inches. Then from the top of this shelf to the bottom of the other is 16 inches. Yeah, roughly 16 inches. Okay, and then the same thing occurs here, 16 inches, and the same between here as well. The top part, I wanna leave it short. Ignore this line. It's gonna be a bit short, which is intentional. This is around 7 inches, a little bit less than 7 inches, but this is the spacing that I have, and you can be flexible with how you decide to make it. Next, I did make the notches for where my shelves are going to land, or at least where I expect them to land. This mark right here is for 8 inches. Going down 10 inches, 12 inches, 14, and no mark because this is 16. So when I start making my curves, kind of made a little mark right here, just playing around to see how it's gonna go. I'm going to make sure to miss the lines. Leave enough room for the shelves so you don't cut out more than you need, okay? So that's why I made those marks, so I can make the designs freely and know where I need to land. Okay, let's start making these waves. This is just something I had in the shop. I'm gonna just use this as a guide. You can use anything that's circular to give you just a wave, like half of a circle, quarter of a circle, to just give you that guide to make the round sections. So, or you can freehand it. Honestly, freehanding is not a bad idea either. You can just eye it, and again, if you're not so good with doing that, try to find something that's round that can give you that guide. Let's get to the markings, and then let's get to figuring out how we're gonna have the waves, and also this might change the length of the shelves depending on where the indents occur, okay? Or I might have to shift where I place the shelves. But let's get going and we'll see how it turns out. Okay guys, after a lot of trial and error, this is what I came up with. This stayed at 8. So the line is right here for the 8. I maintained the 10 on the second one. Make the curve and maintain the 12. Go in, come out. I believe I maintained the 14. And of course, the 15.5. Okay, I freehand the end, which took some time. I freehanded this section because it's a deep curve and I do not have something that's this irregular. I did go inside and get some plant drainers to help me with some smaller circles. It wasn't too much of a help because I still end up using this board to make, well, this one right here, this curve, and also this curve. And then a freehand from there. Okay, so now I'm gonna go to that on the other side and reverse everything I did here. So let's keep going. It's gonna take some time, but we're gonna get it done. Where there's a will, there's a way. I've told you all this and that about getting a guide, right? After I just used the guide, I picked it up, looked at it, I called Sia and just give a second opinion, and it wasn't the best. And also, this is meant to not look perfect, so I would recommend just freehanding, because that's what I had to go back and do. I erased everything I did before, and I just freehand the entire section all over again, almost both sides. That's a pro tip that I'll give you. Do not use a perfect circular guide. Just eye it and keep tracing, erasing, trace and erase until you get it exactly how you want it to look. So now I have this all hand drawn. Now it's ready to get cut out. Let's go. I'll be using a jigsaw. Let's do it. Alright guys, now that we have the bookcase frame cut out, we can move on to getting the shelf measurements and start cutting it out. I'll be cutting it out on my table saw. Also, one thing to note, I kept saying that I was going to do pocket screws, but that's going to change because after some consulting with my consultant, my girlfriend, we decided that we're going to be able to, well, in the future, we're going to have to, if we have to move, we're going to want the ability to disassemble it and carry it with ease. So I was going to cover the screws and seal them, but that's not going to happen anymore. I'm going to actually put screws in the back, but I'm also going to use a countersink drill bit so the screws could go in the hole versus protrude out and stay on the surface after I screw them in. So it's going to have a clean finish and it's not necessarily going to rub against the wall and such. Nonetheless, I think it's better. And also I could use some wood sealer to cover the holes as well. Though it's sealed, it's very easy to break out the wood sealer and unscrew, take the screws out in the future. I may not seal the holes anyway. Nonetheless, just a tip for you guys in case you do want to do it. Alright, so I already got the measurements for this. They're very different measurements. And actually, I'm just going to put it right here for you guys in case you want to do the exact same build. These are the measurements for each shelf. I will have listed from top to the bottom shelf. Okay, so let's go get the shelves cut out so we can move on to the next step. Just like that, all the shelves are cut out. I laid them on the bookshelf to see how they look, and they do look beautiful. So what we have to do next is, I did say I need to sand, and we'll get to that, but I want to round each corner. I'm going to use my router. I'm just going to get a rounding blade to cut and round each end. So just, of course, you don't want it to be sharp. You don't want someone to bump into it and get a cut. Now, if you don't have a router, you can just use sandpaper, or you can use a 120 grit. You just sand the sides, it would round out, okay? Sand both ends. I'm going to also do the shelves as well, in case someone puts their hand in, don't want to get scraped. I've done that to myself a few times. It also makes for a really, really nice finish. So let's get that done, then we'll move on to the sanding. It's coming along. We're almost there. We're almost there. Thank you for sticking around. Are you still there? But you have not subscribed yet? Well, if you're sticking around till the end of the video, I hope I earn your subscribe by the last half of this video. For those who have subscribed, thank you very much. And for everyone who's still watching, thank you so much for your support. I hope this process is easy to follow. Again, if there's any questions, anything that you feel as though I skipped, please leave a comment down below or reach out to me. I have my contacts down below. If you have any questions at all throughout this process, or maybe another project that you probably have a question on. But let's get to the next step. Let's go. Before we do go on to the next step, I'll just like to show you how to do the rounding of the edges with sandpaper. Again, this is 120 grit sandpaper. You can see the edge is pretty straight. It is, yeah, pretty sharp. So I'm just gonna fold my sandpaper, rub it inside, and it's no longer sharp. I'm sure you can tell the difference from here. This is the sharp end, and this is where it got sanded. Okay, you can keep doing it till it gets a little smoother. That should be all you need, really. The way I'm gonna round the edges with the router, it is gonna be a little bit more indented or more rounder, if anything. But again, the purpose is so no one hurts themselves if they were to bump into it, okay? So this should be good enough. If you do have a router, then of course you can go ahead and use it to get it as round as you like, depending on the tools that you have. Okay, so do what you have and let's get going. Alright, so I've rounded the edges, right? It does not look completely clean, so what I'm gonna do is finish it off with some sandpaper by hand. I'm gonna use 120, 150, 220, and then 320 sandpaper. This is before the sandpaper, though of course you see I rounded it on both sides, but this is the results. With the machine, I'll come around here. This is the results after I sanded it by hand. Cleaner look. Okay, and then afterwards I'm gonna sand all surfaces with a circular sander. Let's get that done. I'll be finishing the shelves. Then I'm gonna move on to the circular sander to complete the surfaces, sanding the surfaces. Guys, it's the next day. I woke up early this morning and started sanding, continue sanding all the boards. It took me a few hours to get this done because I wanted to do it the right way. I technically did it the right way. I'll tell you what I did, but then I'll tell you what you should do, right? I went with 120 grit sandpaper, then moved up to 150, then I went up to 220, right? I sand every single board with those 3 different sandpaper grits. What you should do, go from 120, 150, then 180. It's optional if you want to go to 220. I didn't have 180, so I did not use it. But it's advisable that you do not skip the increments. So if you have 180, go at 180. If you want to go finer, you can go to 220. I got all this sanded. It did take some time. The sanding process is essential to the finished product. So I definitely took the time necessary to get this done. And that's just a tip for you guys. Don't skip it. It's definitely daunting, time consuming, but necessary, okay? The next thing I'm gonna do is sand these boards up. I'm gonna connect them together so I can get the base shelf placed in and screwed in. And I'm gonna start getting the measurements and screwing in the shelves. I'm just gonna get the holes in. I'm gonna dismantle it afterwards, and then I'm gonna stain everything. So in terms of steps, I would advise you to get the holes made for the shelves prior to sanding, so you don't have to go back and sand anything afterwards. So it's kind of counterproductive that I'm doing it this way, but due to time and a day and neighbors and such, I wanted to get all the heavy noise out of the way as soon as possible. But again, do this step that I'm going to do right now prior to sanding everything. Okay, so let's get this stand up and let's get going. Sanding, make sure that you know where the top is for each shelf, and also remember, if you are going to round the edges, remember to just round the ones that's going to be exposed, not the ones that's going to be up against the frame. Also, what you can do to make sure you remember what is the top and bottom for the shelves, what I did was leave an up arrow on both sides that's going to be up against the shelves to let me know that this is the face, the top part of the shelf, okay? Just a little tip. I would suggest having something with an angle ruler. Make sure you know when it's perfectly like a 90 degree. This board itself is part of the warp section, unfortunately, so I'll have to play around with it to make it flat, especially since it's the base shelf. I'm gonna use the screws to straighten it up for me. Also, what we'll be using now, and change of plans again for more efficiency, it will be these screws right here, 1.25 inch. It will be trim head screws. Since this is softwood, it goes straight into the material, so it does not protrude out on the surface. So that is beautiful. You could just use wood filler to hide them. And just a little example, the head goes straight into the wood and it indents, so you don't feel it. Okay, so it practically hides itself. You can get it from Home Depot, Lowe's, near big box hardware stores. I'll have all the materials in the description below in case you missed anything. she gets ready to be stood up, we need her to have some type of protection on the bottom. I'll be adding these cork pads. It has practically footing. I'm gonna put 4, and just so the base don't get scrubbed up on the floor, and also so it does not scrape the floor. I'm not gonna apply stain to the base because of course it's gonna be on the floor. She's good. She's amazing. She doesn't wobble. That's a plus. Okay, I'm just excited that it's really good. Look at her, standing all on her own. Wow. Okay, so it's it looks so good. Okay, so now let's get the shelves up so we can get this completed, so we can see the final product. I'm just so excited about this coming together so beautifully. Okay guys, so this is how we're gonna do this. We know that now from the base to the bottom of the first shelf is gonna be 13.5 inches. Okay, so these are the measurements. 13.5 inches to the base of this shelf. So we're gonna make that measurement on both sides, all right, and make a small tick, very, very small. We're gonna leave it at 13.5, and you're gonna add 3/4 of an inch above that tick as well for the thickness of the shelf. Okay, I'll explain more afterwards. That brings us to 14.25. Okay, so now you know the spacing between your shelf, and that's where you will be able to make your screw holes. Okay, we're gonna do it on the other side as well. 15.5, very small tick, go up 14.25. Do it inside as well, so we can make lines to show where we can make our holes and be safe. Beautiful. Get a ruler, make a straight line across, and this is why I told you to make the holes before doing all the sanding, because now if my lines are visible, I will have to have them erased, which is not, I already did all the sanding, so I'll be going back and sanding again, raising dust in the air, and I will have to let it settle because I don't want it to fall on the stained boards while they're curing. Learn from my mistakes. And yes, you can do this while it's laying down. You could also do that too, but I already have it screwed in, so I'm gonna do it this way. Again, we're learning together, so I will just tell you the better approach for all of these things that I am learning. I want to have at least 2 screws on each side for each shelf. It's not going to be much heavy weighted items that we're going to place on these shelves, so it doesn't necessarily need crazy amount of reinforcement, but 4 in total is more than enough. We're going to make sure that it's leveled, and then we're going to drill some holes in from this side, and then we're going to go drill it from the back as well, so we can have it attached to this. You're also going to pay attention to the board itself, whether it's warped or not, so it doesn't necessarily affect your making your measurements for this, or seeing how level it is rather. You can have the right measurements, but then it might still show that it's off leveled because of the warping of the board. So best to get a board that's not warped as best as possible, and if not, you can try to maneuver the board into position and have it screwed in like I did the base. The base was horrible, but I was able to guide it to be flat using the screwing certain sections of it and pushing it to where I needed to be, and then drilling the screw into it. Where there's a will, there's a way, guys. So I'm comfortable with how this is. I'm gonna make my screw holes. I always love to use a drill bit first to guide the screw, so it's not damaging the wood when you do put the screw in. All you have to do now, place the screws in the holes, guide the board to where it needs to be, and screw it in place. What I like to do is use clamps to help guide me, or to help me. It's going to be support. You know where the top is, which way it's going to be like this. Now that I have it like that, I'll need one more clamp to help me on this side. Let's see how that looks. Put it up. I'm going to get this screw in the hole. Alright, that one is in. I can still play around with the board. So all the shelves are in. What do you think? If I wasn't sanding it, then I would just be probably putting on a clear finish, and this will be it. This will be the final product. I am very happy about it. It looks beautiful as it is. I am very excited about this project. It's good just like this, all natural. Now, that is one look, but that's not the look I'm going for. We're gonna go ahead and stain it. I just wanted to get the holes in because I did not want to make a mess after I have all of the stains trying to put in the shelves. So now all the dust has been made. I'm just gonna take the shelves out. They're pre-drilled holes now, so that's perfect. I'm just gonna clean it up and then get to staining. Let's do this. Okay guys, so I took all the shelves out. I'm gonna be placing each shelf on 4 of these, which I got from Home Depot, so I can be able to stain the top and bottom of the shelf. I'll just stain it, flip it, and then stain it again so the surface isn't on the table while it dries. Now, what I'm gonna do here is apply some glue to the tip of these because it's sharp and I don't want the weight of the shelves to leave like those little dots on the shelf itself. I'm just gonna place a small amount of glue so it softens up and it's not as pointy when the boards are drying on top of them. I literally just thought about this. I just don't want the shelves to be damaged in any way. Okay, you don't have to do this. I don't know if the shelves are that heavy to where they actually will sink in, but better safe than sorry. That's how I always roll. So I'm gonna take the extra step to protect them. Okay guys, so we're here. We're at the stage of prepping to stain these boards. This applies for the frame as well, which is over on the side. So first, of course, you will need microfiber cloths to wipe off all the excess dust that you can't see. I already wiped them down, but I'm just showing you. And then you're on to the next step, which is applying some mineral spirits to each one of them. You're gonna raise the dust and get rid of it. What it's also gonna do is there's dust that's trapped within the particles of the boards. So once you do use the mineral spirits, it would raise it and you'll be able to move on to staining it without trapping additional dust that's in there. Okay, so what I'm gonna use is my microfiber cloth with the mineral spirits. And it dries very fast, it just dissipates into the air real quick. So I did decide against putting mineral spirits on this. And also, as mentioned, there is a step that you can take to apply pre-stain conditioner onto your material prior to applying your stain. It will just take off the uneven butchers, they call it. It will limit the amount of butchers that you see in your wood. And that's basically discoloring. There will be light and dark spots in certain areas. And also around these fish eyes, I believe it's called. You'll see it more pronounced if you do not use the conditioner. I prefer not to use it because it kind of adds character, it adds more dimension on the material and makes things pop a bit. So we're not going to use that. But in case you do and you like that finish a little bit better, then here it is, Min Wax, and you know where you can get that from. You can also get it from Ace Hardware as well. Okay, so the stain, as mentioned, that we're going to go with is dark walnut. Let's get this opened up. I already wiped the surface with my microfiber cloth. While the shells are drying from the mineral wax, the mineral spirits, you're going to proceed to adding the stain onto the frame. You want to mix your stain. Okay, so let's get to staining. I'm going to be using a terry cloth to apply. Tell me what you think. What do you think about dark walnut? I personally love it. It really does add a beautiful color to the pine. I'm happy I did go through the sanding process, so the stain comes out as beautiful as it does right now, and I am happy that I skipped the pre-stain conditioner. Well, the stain conditioner. I don't believe that it was needed. It would not have turned out, with the darker and lighter variations if I did use the conditioner. So I am happy that I didn't go with it. Nonetheless, what do you think? What do you think about this finish? Once this dries, I'll spray the lacquer on the shelves and the frame, and then I'll put the shelves in and then get it stood up and placed in position in the living room. Alright guys, so it's the next day. I had to move the bookcase inside because it was so cold in the garage. So the stain was not drying how it's supposed to, at least not as fast as it was supposed to, so I just moved it inside so it's a warmer temperature. When I left it overnight, I was like, okay, I want to be able to spray the lacquer, but honestly at this point, it's still cold in the garage, so I'm gonna skip the lacquer for right now, and probably on a later date when I do have warmer temperatures outside, I'm gonna apply it. And when that time does does come. This is the lacquer that I will be using. You can get this at, you guessed it, Home Depot or Lowe's. All the material in the description below, remember that, take a check. But nonetheless, it is now dry, it looks beautiful, it feels really good. I'm gonna start installing the shelves now, and that will be the final product for now. All right, let's get going. Oh, another tip, when I did stain everything, I left the mark unstained where I have showing the top of the board, just to give me a guide. Okay, that's just a tip. You may not need it, but again, it helps you know and don't have to guess anything when it comes to the final step. Okay, to get things going faster, I would just suggest putting in the screws in the pre-drilled holes, having them ready for when you put the board next to it so you can drill in faster. Bottom up. We'll do the big one, which is 11.5 by 13 inches. The next shelf, 12.5 by 10 and 3/4. Next shelf, 10.25 by 3 means by 10 and 3/4. 10.25 by 10 and 3/4. And the last shelf, 10 by 8.5. What do you think? I think it's beautiful. I love it. Everything about it. Everything about it. Let's get this in position and I'll call them for inspection. Just called in for inspection. Let's call the inspector in. So, what's the verdict?
It looks amazing.
So that's a pass?
Oh my goodness. Pass, pass, pass. 110%.
Appreciate that. I'll report back to my office. A job well done.
Perfect. Oh my goodness, it looks so good. I cannot wait to decorate it.
Mm-hmm.
It looks so well done. Where'd you get it from?
That's the question. She got it from the lovely shop. Now this project comes to an end. It was a lot of fun making this bookshelf. I'm happy I got the pass for the inspection from my girlfriend. She loves it. As you can see, she already started to decorate. She couldn't help herself. Nor could I, because I want to see how it looks decorated too, and it's coming along really nice. But nonetheless, if you guys enjoyed this process, if you guys enjoyed this tutorial, please like the video. And I hope I earned you subscribing to my channel for me to hopefully see you guys next time on the next one. If you have any questions at all regarding the process or any other projects that's pretty cool and you're curious to see how it could be made, feel free to leave a comment down below. I will definitely get back to you. And also, I'm happy that you guys joined me for this journey because I learned a lot throughout the process, and I'm happy that you guys learned with me. So hope to see you guys in the next one. Thank you for stopping by.